Yeah! What up? So, that song is finished, and we'll talk some more about that in a minute. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my very special morning stream. If you didn't catch the community post I made last night, just before I would normally stream, I did say that I had just a little bit of a headache, so decided that I wanted to go ahead and take a break from streaming that night. It really wasn't anything bad, just as I had said, I'd rather just stream when I'm have a more clear head because I don't know. Sometimes I struggle to say words. The words don't just come to my head, and hopefully that would mean less misspeaking or potentially long moments of silence. That's the thing about doing it live is that I can't really cut out all the awkward moments where I can't think of the word that I'm trying to say, so I wind up sitting there for 5 minutes trying to remember what it is that I'm trying to say. It's normally what happens whenever I record a video. When I record a video and I have to edit it, I usually wind up cutting out usually large sections where I'm sitting there going, but I can't do that live, so, let me get my microphone into position here. So there's also something else that I want to talk about. I've actually done something unusual, just like when I did my Tiefel rant. I decided to go ahead and put some bullet points here because I keep forgetting things that I want to talk about that I had accomplished the previous week, but then I forget to actually mention it on stream. So, I actually have bullet points set up here on my second monitor, just to my right. Before I go into that, also, since I'm streaming during the morning, I do want to go ahead and just give a small warning. As you may see, the weather is nice today. My door is open here in the back, so I can let the fresh air in, and I can save on electricity. However, my next-door neighbor, their young baby and older child, both are fairly noisy. You may hear some noises from them. They've been lately enjoying the nice weather as well and having parties on their balcony. I don't actually mean actual parties, just they've been going outside and playing on their balcony, which is, children being children, a little bit noisy. So you might hear that if they are too noisy for too long of a time, then I may close the door during the stream. But for right now, I haven't heard them in a little bit, so maybe they went out or something. Anyways, doesn't matter. Right, so I put bullet points here. I don't know if I'll do this every time, but hopefully, at least for this stream, I know everything that I want to talk about, and it's a lot on the list, because I do want to do another... I do want to have a segment of Nolan complains about stuff he doesn't like again. I have another one planned. I didn't put it in the title. I really should have put it in the title, though, because I'm sure there would be a handful of people who would want to come in here and see my thoughts on what I want to complain about, and that's Warframe. I mentioned last time I've gotten sucked back into it, and I do have some complaints that I want to talk about today. But before we do anything, I want to talk about schedule changes to my stream. And also just the amount of progress that I'll likely be making on the game. So, for the past few months, I have not been working a job. I do have my own part-time work that I do on I do it a few times a week, usually in the evenings, which I have that work, which helps pay some bills. Not all of my bills. I don't earn enough money from it to cover all my bills. I have been unemployed the past few months, so that's how I've been able to devote a lot of time to making this game, and also feeling energized enough to be able to do live streaming. Now, to be fair, I think I started doing some of these streams while I was still working, and I will admit that it may be possible that I can continue to have the same energy to do streams regularly, just like I was back when I first started doing these game dev streams while I was still working. However, it's also might not be likely because the job I held before, I worked very few hours, So therefore I had a lot more extra time. This job that I'm going to be working now is, depending on how you want to look at it, the Japanese government looks at it as full-time, but it's not a full 40 hours. It's still working way more hours, probably twice as many hours as I was working in my job last year. So I don't know how much energy I'll have. So this is just kind of heads up. I don't know if the regularly continued weekly streams will happen or not. We'll just see how I feel at the end of the week. So there will be one more Saturday before I start working. I will start working on May 23rd. So that gives one last Saturday before I go back to the old routine. So that said, even if I do continue the stream regularly, because I will be working regularly, which will cut into my hours that I can devote to developing a game as a hobby, obviously I won't have as much time to develop the game, so progress may be slower once I start working. So even if I do continue streaming regularly, I may not have as much to report in the weekly streams. So yes, that is the first bit of business I just want to get out of the way. I'm gonna I'm gonna delete these off my little notepad here as I progress, so it's easier to find where I am. I didn't put these in any order either. Like the first like 3 bullet points seemed logical, but then after that, you know, it's kind of like, I don't know, it's just kind of slapped on this notepad. Yeah, so the next thing I wanted to talk about is Nolan Complains. Hang on, there we go. All right, I got a video here that I'm gonna just play in the background, so it's not just me ranting. But before I even go into that, so new section of Nolan Complains about shit. I want to talk about Warframe, in particular, the new war. Now, if you don't play Warframe, it's okay. I'm gonna try to make this user-friendly as much as possible. Not that this game has ever been user-friendly, but if you've been a long-time subscriber to my channel, then you probably know that I've been in and out with this game for many years. I started playing Warframe like back in late 2014, I think it was. It was like right around my birthday. So yeah, I've been playing this game for a long time. Now, that's not to say I've been playing it, you know, regularly every day since 2014. I've had very long hiatuses from the game. You know, we're talking like a year or more at a time between bouts of play sessions. Recently, I got sucked back into Warframe, and I've been playing it some more. And since last time I played, there's been a new major quest that they released. They released these story quests. They're very rare. This is only the third major, like, mainline story quest. They have other smaller ones that kind of fill out the world, I guess you could say. But as far as like a long main storyline quest, this is only the third one that they did. It got a lot of hype around it. They've been developing this quest for, I'm not really sure how long. It's probably been 2 or 3 years now. I finally came back to Warframe and decided I wanted to play the new quest, which is called The New War. And now they had showed this quest off at their TennoCon. Actually, for the past couple of years, they had shown it off. Here was the TennoCon gameplay of the quest, which I'm going to play quietly in the background, so you have a little bit something more to look at than my stupid greasy face. So, yeah. I think hopefully this is the video, right? Looks like it. So, don't worry, all of this stuff is like the very intro. I think this gameplay is like the first 30 minutes of the quest. So, yeah. If you are someone, I know there's one person in my audience, though she doesn't always watch all of my streams, that does care about this stuff. Don't worry, this is like the very, very beginning of the quest. You will see this as soon as you click on the quest and click start. So don't you worry about it. Nothing's getting spoiled here. In fact, actually, that viewer that I know for sure may just potentially want to skip this whole thing, because I already talked to her about this just over voice chat, so she already knows what I'm gonna say. There's nothing new here. So when they showed this gameplay off at TennoCon, I was already kind of concerned. If you don't know what Warframe is, it is like an action third-person shooter where you play as a cyborg ninja. The one thing that really sells me on Warframe, and the reason why I always come back to it, is the quality of the gameplay itself. It is fast-paced, the gunplay is fun. Doing the ninja moves while shooting and slashing, and like the combination of just combat and killing hordes of enemies feels great. It feels really great. And then kind of like everything else around it is either meh or really shit. So when they showed this off, I wish it wouldn't just like play from like start to end like the video. I wish it would actually show gameplay instead of like the cinematics. Can I skip ahead? Because this will illustrate my point very well. So what you're seeing in the video is a Grineer soldier. This is just a regular mook that you kill. Like, Grineer are just standard bad guys. You kill thousands of them, hundreds of thousands of them. And so the big twist here was that you get to play as a Grineer. You'll also play as a Corpus, which will probably come up later in this gameplay. Let's just take a look down here. Yeah, it looks like it's showing off all the characters. So if you play... Oh, wait. Oh, no. Okay, yeah. There's the Corpus there. So, yeah. You play as some of the general mooks that you kill in the game normally. And what you'll notice here is that the Grineer guy that you're playing, this is gameplay that they're showing off, is really slow. This is my first complaint with the game. Now, I mentioned the gameplay of Warframe is generally fast and fluid and feels great to play. This is like some sort of slowed down Gears of War shooter thing. And when I saw this at TennoCon, I was worried. I was very worried about what this means for the game. Now, my concern was that this was going to also be a whole new game type, game mode, where you play as Grineer. Fortunately, that's not the case. It's only for this section. But, oh my god, is it slow and painful. In fact, most of the Grineer soldiers, all the mooks that you fight, can move faster than your player character can here. So, I don't understand. Like, it feels so bad. Why did they slow the game down? I hated this. It feels awful. There was nothing really particularly interesting about the game, but that's fine. Like, it's a short section. I mean, I wasn't sure how long the section was going to go on for when I first played it, so I was having concerns in my head as I continued to play it more and more, wondering how much of the new game was going to, or the new war was going to utilize this character. Fortunately, it was short, but even still, I did not enjoy any of these sections. And ultimately, I didn't see the purpose of these sections either. Let me skip ahead again. So later on, you will play as a Corpus, which is just a different enemy type. And you'll see that he kind of has this thing where he can command robots and tell them to go somewhere. Yeah, this was not fun either, because the command system just didn't function very well at all. And once again, you move very slow. You have to, like, solve some puzzles. They're pretty garbo puzzles. I thought they were... I mean, one of them kind of stumped me, but not really because, like... Not really because the puzzle was difficult, but because I just felt like the game was not telegraphing what the puzzle pieces are, if that makes sense. Like, if you think of, like Portal... when you play Portal, you can generally tell what the puzzle pieces are that you're supposed to interact with. You're not guessing what it is that you need to interact with to solve the puzzle. You know what those are. Here are the pieces. How do you use those pieces to solve the puzzle? To me, and I could be wrong about this because I've played a few puzzle games where sometimes it feels like the puzzle is just figuring out what the puzzle pieces are to begin with. So maybe some people think that's a good puzzle. I don't. I don't like those kind of puzzles. That's not a good puzzle. I think the player should be able to know what they need to interact with to solve the puzzle. In here, there's one that I got stumped on because, I mean, there's a broken window, and I wasn't sure, like, if my robots could go in, and then there's also, like, a pool of electricity, and I thought, oh, maybe my robot would just break. I don't know. You'll probably see it come up later, maybe, depending on how slow this is. I really have a lot of complaints about this section, because, again, you move slow, which is not fun. You also don't have a lot of power. You have to rely on your robots, which, annoyingly, are not very effective, because... as you kind of just saw there, his little robot guy had, like, wandered off somewhere. Now, fortunately, in this video, the little robot guy hadn't wandered off very far, so he was able to get to where he needed to go pretty quickly. But when you put the little robot guy in a room where he wanders off, and then the room is just, like, cluttered with a ton of just shit all over the place, then sometimes he gets stuck behind things, and it takes him a while to get to you. This becomes a problem because later you will fight a boss in this section where wow, this is actually kind of different. This is kind of different. This gameplay trailer is slightly different than the actual quest because it bounces back and forth between the two characters. That's not how it actually works in the final game. Granted, this gameplay trailer was shown off a year... 6 months. This was shown off 6 months before the release. Anyways, in the final release, you play through the whole Grenier section, and then, spoiler alert, he dies. And then you switch over to the Corpus guy. You play through the whole Corpus thing, and then he dies? Actually, I don't think he's ever confirmed dead. It doesn't matter. His section is over. So anyways, I guess they changed that. In this gameplay trailer, it looks like they bounce back and forth between the two. Anyways, so yeah, during the Corpus guy, you fight this boss called the Jackal. The Jackal is actually a pretty early boss in Warframe, where it's like this four-legged robot thing. Its mechanics are fairly standard. You, like, damage the legs to make it fall down, and then you can go over there and do damage to the body, and rinse and repeat 3 times. So that's how it works in standard Warframe. With your own Warframe, you know, ninja cyborg guy, you just damage the legs, make them fall down to hurt the body, and that's that. So when you fight the Jackal as the Corpus guy, it's still somewhat similar. I do have to mention some of the Jackal's attacks, because this is important, because you have this stupid little robot allies that follow you everywhere. So he has this one skill where he kind of, like, flies up into the air and spits out these, like, barriers. And as he spins around, those barriers will hurt you. So you have to, like, find cover so that way the barriers aren't hurting you. Now, they hurt anything that the barriers touch. Including your dumbass fucking robot guys, which, as I mentioned earlier, have the tendency to just kind of wander off somewhere. They're not smart enough to just take cover behind something. So, while I'm not looking, my robot guys wander off and then die because of the barrier. This is a problem because, while the Jackal is floating up here and spinning around, you occasionally get a chance to peek out and shoot him. And after shooting him so many times while he's floating, his shields will drop down, he will fall down to the ground, and now, just like with the standard boss fight, you can hurt his body. But, since you're a weak little Corpus guy, your gun doesn't do enough damage, you have to instead take one of your robot guys, send him over to the Jackal, and then have him explode on the body to deal damage. So that's how that works. So, while he's floating up, you damage the shield, make him fall down, send one of your robot guys over to him, and blow up the robot guy on the body to deal damage. So that's that. That's how it normally is supposed to work. However, like I said, when he's doing the spinny around thing, he has those barriers that come up, and if your robot guy is decided to wander off somewhere and died because he was not standing in cover, now you don't have the robot guy. You go over there to the boss and you tell your robot guy to stand in front of the boss and explode, and oh, you don't have a robot guy. So you have to run over to the robot dispenser, call one down, which takes time. Like, it takes a while for it to come down, plop the robot like initializes or whatever, like it unfolds, and then now you have that robot under your control. This all takes time, which is unfortunate because 1, you move slow, and 2, you have to wait for all of this, and then 3, if you're too slow with all of this, then the boss will just get right back up without any damage being done, which means you get to repeat that whole cycle of it jumping up into the air and circling around, and you have to use a little pea shooter to bring down its shield so that way it falls back down so you can repeat the sequence again, which is really annoying. It gets even more annoying because now, after you damage him the first time, after you send your robot guy over there to damage him, and he explodes, the second time when you do it, now there's a pool of electricity at his feet. And so if you send your robot guy over there to explode on him, instead he just blows up in the water rather than actually getting a chance to blow up on the boss. So now you have to use another one of your robots to create a shield around your explodey robot so that way he can walk on the electricity and move over towards the boss and explode there. Wow, this is interesting. So it actually goes over to Teshin now instead of the Corpus. I wonder if they're going to show the final part of the Corpus. It doesn't look like it. It looks like it'll go back to the Grenier, but it's not going to show the Corpus. Anyways, so yeah. So it's the same problem here, except now you're relying on 2 robots. You have your shield drone and you have your regular explodey robot. And once again, if their stupid AI decides to just send them off somewhere where they are now in the way of the barriers that damage them, then they'll die. And when you're trying to go do this quickly, trying to get what you have to do is you have to tell the robot to create a shield on your explodey robot. If they died, you got to create. It's so annoying. It's like, I know the mechanics of the boss fight, I can do it, but I have to rely on the shitty AI that keep dying. It's just not fun. I realize I've been ranting, like explaining this concisely is just not easy. And it's probably not interesting hearing me stumble over my words trying to explain how this boss fight works. So let me just say, in short, it sucks because you're relying on this shitty AI to be able to execute the boss. It's not fun. So after you play the 3 characters, you have, as we already saw, the Grenier and the Corpus guy, which are both standard bad guys. They both die. Like I said, not really a spoiler because, it's the beginning of the quest. It's also kind of funny because they kind of make it into this like sad moment, but I really felt like no impact over the moment. Like, I don't know, they were like trying too hard to make it an emotional moment in my mind. That's what they were trying to go for. But the thing is through all of Warframe, before and even still after this, main quest, you're still killing like hundreds of thousands of them mercilessly. I think there's one point, like, I think they tried to make a point of like showing like how merciless the Tenno are, the Warframes are at killing these guys, but it's like, yeah, that's the point. Like, they were always like, I don't know why they're trying to make it look like, I don't know. I think, never mind. To me, it was just stupid. It didn't have the emotional impact I think they wanted. I guess all of this is really subjective, but I guess that one is way more subjective than you know, the not being Warframe, playing as like weird mooks, the enemy mooks that, I don't know. Anyways, yeah. So let's go over. Let's see, what are my notes here? Yeah, other than Teshin, they are slow. So Teshin's the one playing right now. Teshin's still fairly slow, but feels a little bit more fluid. I'll give him a pass. Like, if more of the characters felt more like Teshin, with slightly better movement speed and a little bit more fluid combat, I would say that it would have been better, in my opinion. Teshin was okay. When you can see that he changes elements, that is not the most fluid thing. I wish it was a little bit more snappier. There's kind of like a short delay where you like have to do the cast, and the cast animation kind of roots you in place, and you can't attack while it's happening. I kind of wish it was a little bit more fluid, being able to switch between the elements, but, you know, for a one-off bit of gameplay that never returns, I think it's fine. So yeah. Yeah, so let's see, I've completed that. Corpus Guy fights Jackal Boss. I did my best to explain that. Explain the frustrations with the robots. I think I explained that. Alright, so this is not going to be shown in the video because they don't show they don't show anything after playing the other characters. But the whole story quest is not playing other characters. Eventually, you do play one of your characters. This is weird Warframe lore. You play as the operator, which is basically the person who controls the Warframe. You could consider like the Warframe kind of like a, I guess, sort of like a suit of armor, and the operator is the one that controls the suit of armor. So anyways, you play as the operator and not the Warframe for most of the rest of the story quest, which is bad. It's way worse than the beginning. Like, playing slow characters that can actually do combat is way better than playing as the operator, who is just as slow, but most of her missions are his or her, whatever gender you chose. I chose a her, so I'll probably referring to my operator as her. Most of her missions are slow stealth missions a la 2006, where getting caught in your stealth mission is an automatic fail. That's not fun. Yeah, this was bad. Now, not all of her missions were this way. Some of them were mostly stealth missions. Your operator is weak, so you don't want to get caught, but you can get caught. So those are okay. At least it's not an instant fail. But then there's a lot of her missions are instant fails if you get caught, and it is really bad. And the combat is just not fun because you feel just as weak as the Corpus guy with his little pea shooter, but the difference is you don't have explodey robots with you. You have your pea shooter and a knife, and that's it. And it sucks. You move just as slow as them, and you have none of your special operator abilities. It is so garbage. I hated it. Which, speaking of, so your operator, like all of the writing in this game, I really hate the writing in Warframe for their main stories. Sorry, this probably comes from the place of me as an older player who's played this game since, 2014. Although I say that, and now that I think about it, there's a bunch of like longtime content creators for Warframe that that actually like the writing. I don't know, but it feels really bad. Like, they intentionally make their writing unclear. They use a lot of terms that they never take the time to define. There's nothing wrong with having your sci-fi names or anything like that, but I not that my book was a success. No one's fucking read my book. That's not true. I have 445 readers according to my honey feed. That's it. I was going to call it Honeybee. According to my honey feed account, I have 445 people who have at least opened my book and read at least the first chapter. So there's at least 445 people who have read my book. Go check it out. It's on Honeyfeed. Links in the description. Now, I remember that there was a lot of like terms I needed to make the reader aware of when I wrote my book. So I usually took time. Like in particular, one thing that I did is there is a group in the book that is regularly referred to as the GIE. But it was important to me that the readers would know what the fuck I'm talking about when I just use the abbreviation GIE. And so what I did is from the very beginning, I first started referring to GIE and their actual name, Galactic Imperial Empire, usually pretty close to each other. Like I would start off with one person would say the Galactic Imperial Empire and the other person would respond with the GIE or something like that. And this would like, it was kind of like slowly introducing this term. Like over time, I started dropping referring to them as Galactic Imperial Empire altogether and just started referring to them as GIE, because at that point I referred to both the Galactic Imperial Empire and GIE so close to each other that hopefully by later in the book I don't even need to call them the Galactic Imperial Empire at all. I can just refer to them as a GIE and the reader would know what the fuck I'm talking about. Like this is what I felt was important in my book. Now, I'm not a successful writer, so I don't know if that really was the right thing to do, but it felt like the right thing to do for me because I understood that I don't want to alienate my reader from concepts in the book that, like, everyone's interpretations of written word or even spoken word is going to be slightly different. So if I'm not careful about how I define these terms, people may not understand what the hell I'm talking about. And to be clear, this doesn't happen. This is a lie right here. Okay, so this is just like a, I don't know, like a trailer, whatever. Anyways, ignore that. To be fair, not all of my terms got defined very well. I was an amateur writer when I wrote the book. There are some things that were not completely made clear in the story, but this is all to say, I feel like Warframe does a really poor job at defining these terms. Like, they just kind of throw them in there and expect the player to go to the wiki and look up what this is, or going into their codex and reading about it, or whatever, which sometimes the codex is really not clear. It's like, it's kind of like wiki surfing to get the answer, where like you might reference this codex thing, but it has a bunch of other undefined terms that result in you having to go to another codex thing. But it's not like wiki surfing is way easier because, you know, there's hot link stuff. You could just click on it and it'll bring you over to the correct wiki page, and you can read from there and then just hit the back button and go right back to the wiki page you're reading before. That's fairly fluid. In the codex, it's like you have to back out of this codex entry, find the other codex entry, click on it, open it up, read through it, and then of course, God forbid, that codex entry has other undefined terms that you don't know, and you got to then you got to close out of this one, go to that other codex entry, bring that one. Like, my point is I hate the writing in Warframe, but I feel like tinfoil hat time. All this writing is intentionally vague because they like how the community has basically created all of the lore and story for them. They make it intentionally muddy so that way the fans can make their own fan theories about what's going on, and then when they write the next bit of story, they can say, yeah, that's we totally meant that. Yeah, that's what we meant with our vague, unclear writing. Yeah, it's I don't like it. I really don't. And again, as I was trying to say that I interrupted my own self with, playing this game since 2014, like, it never really had a clear intended story at the very beginning. There's a no-clip documentary that kind of explains the inception of Warframe. It was kind of this Hail Mary of a game. Digital Extreme Studio was basically on its last leg, about to go bankrupt. So they basically said they had the idea for Warframe. They pitched it to a bunch of companies, but no one wanted to publish it. So they're like, fuck it, just make the best gameplay loop we possibly can, and we'll worry about everything else after. Just make the great gameplay loop. Let's put it out. Let's publish it ourselves, and hope to God this brings us back from the brink of destruction. And obviously it worked. But the point is they just set out to build a really, really compelling gameplay loop that had nothing else attached to it, because they were just focused on that gameplay loop. So the story came later. They had to retcon stuff because there was no story to begin with. And I guess I come from that era. Like, technically, I think they were starting to kind of introduce some lore and some story stuff, some light story stuff into the game by the time I had started playing, but it was still fairly bare bones. And it was basically, back then, the story was Warframe stopped the bad guy, and that was really it. And I think that's totally fine for the game. My point is, story bad. I don't like the story. It's not clear. I don't understand most of it. It requires a wiki, which is ironic considering that a lot of this game involves using the wiki already, but I don't usually go to the wiki for lore information. I usually go to the wiki for grinding information. I'm going to go ahead and... There's a ton of notes here. I clearly really wanted to complain about this game, and I do, but I'm already 40 minutes into this stream, so I'm just gonna wrap it up. There's just one last thing I've got to mention here. There is some good stuff. Let me just briefly say this. All right, I have to say this. There is a good moment. There's a couple of good moments, but the one that really sticks out, there's like a moment where you're eating dinner with yourself, because there's some sort of weird time paradox thing going in the story. And I don't know what it was. There's this really weird, like, very video gamey cinematography. Like, it didn't feel very professionally done, but I actually really liked it. It was sort of just this weird... It wasn't just the cinematography either. It was the whole direction of it as well. Just felt very... I wouldn't say amateur, but it doesn't feel AAA either. Like, it felt very AA. And I don't know what it was, but I actually really liked it. And actually, that whole moment where you're having dinner with yourself was probably the clearest the story ever got. Like, I actually understood what was going on there. And because I could understand what's happening, what they're talking about, I could actually enjoy it. And it was okay, actually. There's still some other writing problems. My other complaint here, this is the last one that I wanted to talk about actually, is I really hate the personality of the operator. This Katniss Everdeen personality is just, it's obnoxious, really. And actually, overall, the writing kind of gives me this young adult novel kind of vibe. Like, it's kind of like Marvel, like the writing cliches of Marvel mixed with young adult novels / movies. Just kind of all wrapped together. And I think this is one of the reasons why also the story doesn't click with me. I've never really been a fan of those kind of things, but even still, it's called a young adult novel or young adult movie. Like, it's young adult genre for a reason. I'm not really a young adult anymore. I was when I started playing this game. So when I started playing this game, I think I was the demographic for the game. Though, like I said, I've never been a fan of the young adult genre of things, but I was much closer towards the demographic and much closer towards enjoying it back then. But now, I just find it really trite. So, yeah, maybe I'm not the correct demographic for it anymore. But I guess that's kind of disappointing because they put a lot of work into this content. They spent, like I said, probably like, I don't remember if it was like 2 or 3 years working on this update for the game, this story, and I don't enjoy it. I thoroughly don't enjoy it. And the problem is also, when you do this quest, you are locked into it. It is basically, first of all, it's single player, which seems kind of contradictory to the whole ethos of Warframe, which has been a co-op third-person looter shooter. So it's kind of funny that you get locked into this single player campaign. Now I could understand, I don't know, I think a lot of it could have easily been adapted for multiplayer. Like if you're just playing Grenier Mooks on the ground, like there could easily be 3 or 4 of them. They're all, first of all, I think in the lore itself, they're all like clones, but I think the lore goes that they've all been like kind of like pugs, you know, like pugs have been inbred so much that they're just like deformed and gross, and that's basically what the Grenier are. They've been cloned so much that they're just like disgusting things. So like I think that's the lore. I don't know. Like I said, I've never cared about the lore very much. But if that's the case, then like easily within the lore, it would make sense to have 3 other Grenier on the ground with you as you play through this story, because they're all clones. Who cares if they all look exactly the same? Because that fits within the lore, the story. So I don't know. It's really weird that it was single player campaign. And you get locked into it. It's like 4 or 5 hours long, also depending on, you know, how explorative you are. I wanted to explore. It seems like there's a lot that you could explore with this quest and find other stuff. There are some sort of like side missions too, but I hated it so much that I just wanted to get it done like right away. I had no interest in doing any of the side objectives because I was like, fuck this. I want to go back to playing normal Warframe. And the unfortunate thing is when you start the quest, to be fair, they give you a warning about this. They do warn you before you start the quest saying you will not be able to play regular Warframe for a little bit, so make sure you're ready to sit down and do this. But it's still kind of unfortunate that it has to be that way, because I was not prepared for how bad the gameplay was going to be. That I wanted to get back to just playing regular Warframe, and unfortunately I was locked into the story until it was done, and that was probably one of the worst parts about this whole thing, is that I couldn't even just like switch to playing regular Warframe to kind of like cleanse my palate of all the awful somewhere in the interim, but that wasn't an option. So anyways, I have other notes here. I'm not going to go through it. I've been talking about this stuff long enough. I probably spent too long talking about this stupid jackal boss, trying my best to explain that. I did think about like maybe clipping this section and just having it its own upload on my YouTube channel. While I'm clipping it, I may potentially just clip the jackal boss altogether, because that was bad. So anyways, with all of that done, let's get back to RPG Maker. I am going to open up RPG Maker here, but actually the first thing I want to talk about is that song that we started with. Now last week I showed off the song, and it was incomplete. And the reason it was incomplete was because god damn it. The reason it was incomplete was because I was missing the speak sound effect. So is it still open here? Yeah, it is. I'm going to turn this down a little bit so it doesn't blast out your ears. If I go to about here, I think. No, a little bit further. Here. Yeah, so there's like this glitchy thing going on with all these different sounds, and those are like, so in the game, whenever you speak to a character, I can just run the game real fast. So like if I go over here and talk to him, you'd kind of hear the cello go ba-na-na. Also, whenever Fiddle speaks, she has her own sound too. You can hear that, right? So, what I wanted to do for that little glitchy section in the song was to use all of the different voices from all the different characters to kind of create this 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 I don't know moment in like this musical moment. Of course, the thing is all those little the thing is those speaking sections, those little speaking sound effects. They are all in the same key, and that's just because all of the sound effects and music and everything is written in what I call the key of fiddle, which I think is it's in A scale with a D, an accidental D in it occasionally. I think that's. See, I don't know my my music theory very well. I'm pretty sure it's A major. Let's see. With the pitches A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp. Yeah, that's right. So the D is not the accidental. There's an accidental E flat that's occasionally in there. So that's my key of fiddle. Yeah. Though I guess it's normally C sharp, E, F sharp. Yeah. That's the key. I was looking at the wiki page here. So anyways, yeah, that's the key. So everything's kind of written in that key, the key of fiddle, which, you know, like I said, has that occasional E flat. So yeah. So I like all the sound effects, including the speak sounds and any of the other sound effects that I make, usually are within that scale. So I figured I could just drop it in and it would sound fine. The one thing is if I was really smart about it, all those sound effects could have been like a little bit of a melody, and then once you put those sound effects together, it would construct the full melody. Unfortunately, I didn't have that foresight, but either way, I figured going with this kind of glitchy option. I figured it was good enough. But I had to make all the voice sound effects because I hadn't actually created all the sound effects for all the different characters. Like I had some of them, like Mallory here, his sound effect was done, and Meditrino was finished, but I have Banon right here, Senna here, and Trisha here. I didn't have their sound effects. And then the shopkeeper, here's the innkeeper. This is just for the intro, but it doesn't matter. The innkeeper, the shopkeeper, the librarian, and the priest. I didn't have any of their sound effects finished. Oh, I have Joy. Joy is kind of... there's no deeper meaning behind this, but Joy's sound effect is that piano that plays throughout a lot of this section. So the pattern that's going on is it goes piano and then someone else's voice. So it'd be like piano and Mallory's voice, and then piano, and then Meditrina's voice, and then piano, and that piano that like separates each section is actually Joy's voice. Just no reason to it. It just sounded better. Like I played around with kind of the patterns for the glitchiness. And to me, I liked that pattern of this like little treble like trill to separate each of the other sounds. So yeah, so I just used Joy's voice for that. So yeah, so I finished all those voices. Let's take a look at them. Where did I put them? Is it under sound effects? Yes. Although this folder is kind of a mess with the Rhea Peaks files all over it. No, I don't want that. I'm just gonna launch all of them. All the new sound effects. Just for them all. So, yeah, so here's all of the different sound effects that I made. So we have the arena boss, Banon, engine, everyone else, Felix, forest boss, mid boss, Quill, Senna, Traveler, Trisha, Truett. I did unfortunately forget to do the librarian.
But as I had mentioned last time, if I don't have all the characters in that little moment, that's okay. Forgetting one or two is totally fine. It's just that before last week, I only had maybe four, so I was recycling a lot of it. So I didn't want that. That was for sure. So, anyways, we can just take a listen here to these. I'll turn it up a little bit. Yeah, so that's all of the voices that I added. So now we can go back to that section. Now that you've kind of heard them, I did have to do some EQing and processing to kind of make them fit into the mix. The one thing that was kind of challenging about all these different voices doing that, excuse me, where's my voice going? One of the challenges with getting all these voices to fit into the mix is that all of them have a very different timbre to them. So getting them to sit just right in the mix was pretty tough, which required a lot of just compression and EQing to just make them stick out. And actually, ultimately, what I did, so before I had this glitch effect on it. The glitch effect I had some control over, but there's also an extent of randomness to it as well. And it was all put on a single track. But what I ultimately decided to do to process different sounds is I created one track just for the piano that, constantly interjects Joy's voice. Then I had a track that I designated for sounds that have more of a mellow timbre to them. So that way I could really pump their trebles to kind of help them cut through. And then I had a track for more of the harsher timbres, so I could actually reduce their trebles so they're not too painful to listen to. So yeah. Let's see, where did it go? There it is. So let's go back to the song here. I think it was right around here. Yeah, so it doesn't sound exactly one-to-one, but my main concern was making sure that it can be heard through the mix. So I did work on that. I also did some what I would consider overproduction on it, which is where you're getting a little bit too insane with using, first of all, the number of effects, but also the number of techniques you're using as well to get something to cut through the mix. And I feel like I had to go way over on overproduction with that section. Not only do I have a number of effects to help it kind of cut through the mix, but I also use side chaining, which is basically where you link the output, the audio output to another audio track to control some sort of effect. So when this sound is playing, it's also modulating an effect on this track. In this case, I created a dynamic EQ. So basically when this track is playing, it's lowering an EQ on this track over here. And I actually linked the glitchy sounds to multiple tracks to try to reduce their mids. So the mids, I'm going to quote Dank Pods here, it's where most of the instruments live, which is true. That's just, I like the way that he phrases it. It's where most of the instruments live. It's where the band lives. Like all of the, like in the trebles, you have your like hi-hats and some of the breathiness, but you don't really have a lot of like melody there. And then in your bass, you have like your kick drum and your bass guitar, and that's really it. There's no other instruments that are there. But then in your mids, you have everything else. You have your melodies, you have your guitars, your cellos, your violins, a lot of your synthesizers, all of that kind of lives in the mids. And so everything starts fighting for this middle space. And so to kind of help that glitchy section kind of cut through the mix, I created this dynamic EQ with sidechaining. So basically, to help this glitchiness cut through the mix with its mids, where its band resides, I reduce the mids, the band of all of the rest of the instruments. So when it would play, all the other instruments go down. So it's kind of like in effect, it's kind of balancing it out. Because normally, if I didn't do that, then it's just adding to the mids. I feel like I'm trying to explain the Jackal boss again. I'm using a lot of words and not making it very clear. I'm like Warframe's writing. So, anyways, that's what I had to do. If you don't understand it, don't worry. I tried my best to explain it. All you need to know is that I had to do a lot of processing to get that section to work, but I am pretty happy with the end result. It's just the one thing that I guess you could say that got lost in the translation is that the effects, the voices that are glitched out are so heavily processed that for some of them it might be difficult to tell that was one of the voice effects. But it is what it is. So yeah. Anyways, yeah, let's see. What else is on the docket here? Yep, speaks, sound files for the Great Climb, and I forgot the librarian. Both of those are finished. I do want to talk about this next thing on the list. Like I said, this is not in any order. I want to actually take a moment to do a detour on my list, which is going to be going to, let's go to the sandbox and go to the volcanic tile set. I think I showed this off last time, where I'm using a weather effect. I use this weather effect in the seas. You know, there's a stormy weather effect. And I use that weather effect here with the cave tile set, with the lava and all that. Because there's one of the weather effects was like having embers rising up from the heat, you know. And I thought that would go really well with this. The problem is that it was bugged. There was some sort of problem with it that I just couldn't identify. So now if we put my player here, we'll just start that. And look at that, it's working. So before, when the embers were activated in the game, it would just crash the game. It wouldn't, it's not like they didn't show up at all. It was just that it would crash the game outright. So yeah, I'm glad to have that working now, and I have to take a moment to thank NS. She's the one who actually fixed the plugin for me. I had actually originally contacted the author of this plugin. It's a paid plugin, by the way. I paid money for this, so this is a little bit disappointing. So the author is Ares, and Ares developed a weather plugin and has just been MIA. I think it's really unprofessional. It's just not good that they're still charging money for their plugin, but they're not really supporting it, because I contacted them on Twitter, which is where they directed me to go for support, which I don't like. Most of the paid for plugins, first of all, they usually distribute them through itch.io. And normally they just have the comment section of their page turned on, and then you could just leave a comment on that plugin and ask for support there. And the nice thing about having the comments turned on where you get support is that if you purchase the plugin and you have a problem, then you can go to the comment section, which is public, and browse through the comments and see if anyone else has had a similar problem and if there's already been a resolution for that. The problem with what Aries wanted to do was that whoever, I don't know, they wanted you to go to their Twitter and privately message them for support. Which the problem there is that now I can't see any of the people's past problems. I did go to one of their tweets when they had announced the release of the plugin and noticed someone else was having a problem with the plugin, but the problem they were having was not the problem I was having. So yeah. And I mean, that's the only public information of support there was just responses to their announcement tweet. And so I had contacted their Twitter privately, but they never responded to me. And so I'd also gone to the YouTube page where they showed off some of the weather effects and just left a comment there saying, hey, I need some support for your plugin. It'd be great if you'd be able to help me, considering I paid for your plugin and you're not doing support anymore. They never responded, obviously. So I tried taking a look at the plugin myself to see if I could fix it. I've fixed a few plugins already so far. The difference between those plugins and this plugin is that they were fairly simple plugins. The amount of code was substantially less than this plugin, so it was pretty easy to keep track of what's being done, like what certain variables were and all of that stuff. Like it was easier to keep track of that kind of information and see where something went wrong, as compared to this plugin where it was there's a ton of code for it, and so keeping track of what is what was very difficult for me. So I failed to be able to fix it myself. So I passed it on to my friend NS, who managed to fix it in a very short amount of time. So, I mean, I don't know what to say other than thank you for being able to fix that not only quickly, but being able to fix it at all, really. So yeah, it's great that I got this plugin working now. So just a big thank you to NS, and that's all I wanted to do, is just take a moment to say thanks to NS for helping me with the plugin. And also, if you are a plugin developer, which I doubt, not many people watch these. If you are a plugin developer, if you are getting out of the game, as it were, if you were to stop developing plugins, please release your shit for free. Like, it's fine to charge while you're still developing, but once you're not supporting your plugins anymore, release them for free, please. Music, like, I give a lot of shit to the music plugin industry because their prices are fucking nuts, and the amount of DRM that they put into their plugins is just obnoxious. It's insulting to the customer. It's very cynical, and again, the pricing is also very cynical towards the customer as well. I give a lot of shit to the plugin market for music plugins, but the one thing I will give credit to is that like 90% of the companies that develop plugins usually release old plugins for free once they are no longer supporting them. Because really what you're doing is you're buying the support for that plugin. Especially when they introduce so much fucking DRM, you hardly own the damn thing. So anyways, please, if you are charging money for your plugin, it looks really fucking unprofessional when you are demanding money from us, but then you won't even support your product. So if you are a plugin developer, it is fine to charge money while you are developing the plugin. Get that dough, man. You know, get yourself a bag. I totally understand. Charge money for it. But if you are moving on to greener pastures, either no longer doing RPG Maker stuff, or maybe it's just an old plugin for RPG Maker, like an old version of RPG Maker, and you don't plan on coming back to that plugin, please release it for free. I mean, especially if like you're no longer supporting your plugins because you've moved on to other things, you're also probably not marketing it very much, which means it's probably not going to be popular. Not many people are going to come across it. I don't know how much money you're going to be making off of a plugin that hardly anyone talks about anymore. So it's not like you're losing out a lot of money anyways by releasing it for free, and at least it gives you goodwill with your customers. So anyways, rant aside, that was frustrating that this developer is just MIA and was not able to support their plugin that I paid for. But thankfully, I have a great friend who was able to find the problem with their plugin. I want to rant about something else too. Another rant. It just kind of popped into my head. Here's the thing. There's so many plugins I've had to fix. Thankfully, they're free. That have had multiple updates and have been released, for several years now, and it is insane the lack of like testing. Like I get it. I'm not like the programming in RPG Maker is super duper like in depth, but even still, when I'm doing scripting stuff with events, there's still times that I overlook stuff. Like it happens. I totally get it, but how can you have a plugin that's been released for several years that you are still supporting, by the way, and still have simple things in there like typos? Like, it surprises me the number of plugins that have been developed that have multiple functions that it really, when I implement them, it shows me they didn't playtest all of the functions. And that's annoying. So like, for example, one of my plugins that I use a lot is my audio fader plugin here. This audio fader plugin allows you to control the audio for different audio tracks, like your background music, your background sounds, and what's the other one? Like menu music or something? I don't know. Anyways, there's 3 tracks that'll let you control, and that you can like control the fade in, fade out, and the volume just through like events, through plugin commands. Like you can just add something here and say when you get here, change the volume or whatever. And so there, you could say there are 3 functions that actually you could. For this example, let's just say there's these 3 functions. You have controlling background music, that's one function. Controlling background sounds, that's another function. And controlling whatever the third audio track is, we'll just say menu music. And that's the third function. So for me, as a developer, I would implement the background music controls. I would develop those, and then I would play test those and make sure they work. All right, that works. I would also sandbox it, so I'd probably have like a little thing here that would activate, this is the background music controller. So that would be there. And then I'd have another one. I would develop the background sound controller, and I would create another event for background sound, and I would play test that and make sure that functions correctly. Then I'll do the third one, and same thing, create another event that controls that. And then in my sandbox, I can activate all 3 when all 3 have been developed and make sure there's no poor interactions with them. Like, to me, this doesn't seem like extensive debugging. And I'm picking on audio fader here because it was the one that really stuck out in my mind. There was another one that I had to fix that was very similar, where it's like they clearly just didn't play test the functions they had developed for their plugin. Like it was another like the thing is with these 3 controllers, your background music, your background sound, and your menu music, they're all more or less the same thing as far as the code is concerned. You're just each one is controlling a different part of the audio track. Like it's controlling a different audio track. And so they just pretty much copy and paste. That was the reason why the background sound wasn't working, is that they just copy and pasted the background music to the other ones and just forgot to change the variables. But that's the thing, is like, if you're copying and pasting stuff, it doesn't matter. Like, you really need to playtest your stuff. Just because this one's working doesn't mean the other ones are working too. So I don't know. It's crazy that these plugin developers just don't seem to playtest their fucking plugins. I'm not a developer. Maybe there's something I'm missing in this puzzle, but as someone who does scripting through these events, I extensively playtest these events to make sure that, you know, like, each step of my scripting is working as intended, and there's no, you know, ill-conceived consequences for some poor scripting that happened. So I don't know, man. It's frustrating. That's another rant. That's just, for the love of God, developers, play test your shit more. Play test each function as you develop it. Don't just develop one function and then copy and paste it and assume that it works. That seems really amateurish to me. Again, maybe I'm missing something here as a non-developer. Maybe that's just normal, but it doesn't sound normal to me. So anyways, yeah, okay, I've completed that. Let's move on to the next bullet point here. We'll get to Parallaxes in a moment. That's the next thing on the list, but I'm going to probably save that for sort of last. There's a couple of things that I think I can talk over briefly. One thing I forgot to mention last week was here, these bosses. I had done some additional scripting for them. So I had been missing some functions with them where, like, if the player dies to the boss, I think I'd mentioned this in a couple of my streams, a couple of streams ago, that, like, here when you die to the mid-boss and then you return to the mid-boss, he kind of acknowledges that you die. It's brief, but it's just like, oh, you're back for more, and then the fight starts, you know. However, this, for the bosses of the sea, they didn't have that function. When you died and you come back, it would just replay the whole conversation all over again, which is, I mentioned this before, it's already pretty punishing, because you lose your notes when you die. Notes is your money. You lose your notes when you die, and then you have to come, so you respawn here, and then you have to make your way all the way back to the boss. So you'd be here, and you'd come up here, and then you can use the teleporter to go here, and then you can go through the door, and then here. So that's already, like, when we're talking about, like, gamer retention, especially after dying, you know, you could easily start to feel frustrated that you have to make that whole trek back after dying just to attempt again, to potentially die again. Especially when we're talking about, like, turn-based RPG games, and especially with my combat, where it's, I would consider it visceral, I guess you could say, where when there's a lot of RPGs rely on luck, which means there's a good chance that you may die not because of your own fault, but because you just rolled some bad luck. So it's already kind of punishing to have to make that trek back. So I didn't want to force the player to also have to sit through this whole conversation again. So I did develop a acknowledgement of you dying, just like with the mid-boss here. It's more or less very similar. The bad guys just say, oh, you're back for more, and then the fight starts. You know, it's very, very short, because the last thing I wanted is a bunch of extra dialogue to make the players sit through. I don't want that. I want them to be able to just get right back into the battle and try again. So yeah, I had actually developed that last week. I just forgot to mention it in my last week's stream. Also, after they're defeated, they have some dialogue as well that I've implemented. Previously, when you defeated them, they just disappeared, and you just go and activate the lighthouse, and that's that. But now there's actually, like, a little bit final story, some wrap up to them before they get deleted, and then the player is able to activate the lighthouse. So yeah, so there's just more story stuff happening there. So that's been implemented. I did that last week, but just like I said, forgot to bring it up on stream. So that one's done. The other one that I've worked on, and I actually had a rough time going to sleep last night, so I actually did more of this technically I guess it was this morning. As I had mentioned, I had a headache yesterday, so I went to bed actually really early, probably actually before I would even normally stream. And I wound up waking up at like 1:30 a.m. And I just told myself, I'm just going to grab a snack and then I'm just going to go back to bed. But that didn't really work. After grabbing my snack, I just had a lot of trouble falling to sleep. So I wound up deciding that I wanted to just do a little bit of work on my game until I felt sleepy. And I felt particularly motivated to do some writing, and so I've been working on Mallory's quest, which I've been working on for a long time. And it's not even that it's complicated. I don't want to make it sound like there's like a lot of complexity going on with this quest. It's not. It's mostly just dialogue, and there's not even like a lot of movement. It's mostly just two NPCs standing in place right here. It's almost entirely dialogue. However, the problem is that I keep having, I guess you'd say writer's block. When I'm doing my writing with my novel, I experience the same thing. And what it is it's not like I want to stop. I don't want to call it like losing focus on my writing. It's not like I want to like do something else or anything, because I would really call that boredom. That's not really what it is. It's not boredom. But what happens is that I'm writing, and then it's kind of like I just run out of steam. Like I'm struggling to like remember words or the exact thing that I want to say or whatever it is. And so I spend a lot of time just like with my fingers just hovering over my keyboard, like, what is it that I want to say next? What is it that I want to write next? And I just can't think of it. And then it just gets frustrating because I'm just sitting there doing nothing, trying to think. That's when I start getting bored, is because I just can't think of what to do, but now I'm starting to think of what I could be doing instead. So yeah, I guess you would consider that writer's block. Usually what it is I just need a short break. Unfortunately, it just means like I can only do like writing in very short bursts of, depending on my mood, it could be like just a short burst of like 20 minutes to maybe 40 minutes. And unfortunately, that's what's been going on with Mallory, is that's sort of the thing that's been slowing down the quest, is that I'll write a handful of lines, but then it kind of just peters out. You know, I run out of steam and I just can't seem to think of what's the next thing that I need to say. So yeah, Mallory's quest is almost finished though. I've playtested what I've done so far, and so far it's pretty good. I think for what this game is, it has the right amount of emotional impact to it. That's not to say, like, I mean, this game is not something that takes itself too seriously. It is a pretty small scope game. So, you know, it's not like the most in-depth conversation, but I think it does a pretty good job. Unfortunately, I still just haven't finished it yet. So I did a handful of his quests throughout this week, and then also, like I said, last night, technically this very, very early this morning, you know, at like 3 or 4 a.m., I don't remember. So, yeah, he's close, and I hope to finish his quest this week. And also, now that I have all of the different speaking sound effects for the characters, I hope that I can also start starting and possibly even finishing some of the other characters' quests as well. That does bring me, I mentioned this last time, that does bring me back to the cave level. I haven't even started on it yet because I've been waiting on a plugin to be finished that someone's developing to help me do a puzzle. I don't really want to wait much longer. If he does get it done, the one nice thing about his plugin is that it won't be dependent on the ID of the event. So the biggest problem I have right now is I showed this off before. There's this fish. You throw the fish into the water, and then it spawns some platforms that you can use to jump across to clear larger gaps. So like if you can jump one tile, so then you jump here, the platform would spawn here, which would allow you to jump one more, so you could basically clear a 3-tile gap. So that's the idea, but there's a lot of like the logic is not very efficient, and yeah, I don't know. So it'd be better if it's a plugin. However, I do have it technically working with this very poorly implemented logic, that I could use it. My biggest problem with this is that it's very dependent on this ID, this event ID. And if the event ID is incorrect, like let's say for example this fish event ID is 4 instead of 3. I know it's very small on the screen, so it might be difficult to see. It says ID 003. So God forbid if I implement the event and it is the wrong event ID, unfortunately RPG Maker doesn't give you any sort of way of changing that event ID. So God forbid if I make it event ID 004, then the whole thing breaks. So basically, to make this mechanic function properly as it is now, I have to remember, I have to be 100% sure that I make the fish the 3rd event. Like it has to be the 3rd event. Otherwise, it all breaks. And that's the problem, is that it has to be that 3rd event. That's why I'm kind of waiting on this guy's plugin, is that it's going to simplify that whole thing. I won't be dependent on the event ID. So, yeah, I'm not working on this just yet. Still waiting on that. But I might not wait much longer, because I would really like to start doing some of this tiling, starting to lay out the level. Because I think I have a pretty good idea of how I want to do the level, the layout of the level. So it'd be nice to start working on that. Yeah. Let's talk about the title of this stream. It should be pretty short. Here's the parallax test. So I talked about this last time. So this song that I showed off, this one is for what I would call the Great Climb, as it's just, that's the name of that's the title it's taken so far. And so the idea is basically the player is going to be going up this massive staircase as the song plays in the background, and the length of the staircase is the length of the song. And so the one thing I wanted to do with this was to basically create like this sort of sense of a z-axis of depth. So as you climb higher, the ground gets further away from you. And I had spent some time thinking about how to do this. And what I ultimately decided to do was that you can export a map in RPG Maker. So what I could do is build a massive, just an absolutely massive map, and then export that map as a PNG, and then use that map as a parallax, which is what you're seeing here. So I'm going to temporarily turn off one of these plugins, because the plugin is actually the problem. This is a problem that we're going to talk about today. So I think these events are still assigned correctly, hopefully. So we'll just run that. So you can see the parallax in the background, and it changes as you go, but I don't like that jerky change. So there's a few options of what I could do. I can either make the increments between each height change smaller, but that would be really annoying, because what I'm doing here is actually kind of more of a brute force method. Is in Photoshop, I'm actually just changing the crop level of the of the image. So each one of these are just different parallax images that it's changing between. And I don't like how sudden and jerky it is. So one thing I could do is just change the amount of crop to be a smaller increment, so it's slightly more smoother. But I still don't know. It's still kind of jerky, and I don't like that. So I started looking into other plugins on how to do this. So I got this Parallax Utilities plugin, and I don't fucking understand how to use this. If it's still set up the way it was previously, I don't remember, but I should just go ahead and give a seizure warning. In fact, the way this plugin works is probably what gave me the headache yesterday to begin with. So if it's still set up the way it was, you're going to see some nasty stuff. So if you're sensitive to that, look away. Here it is. This is awful. As I move further north, so what's happening if you're looking away is it's basically vibrating the parallax in the background at absurd levels. As I go further north on the map, the vibration decreases, and I think what's happening is that there's the existing parallax layer on the bottom, and then the utility has applied a new parallax layer on top. And for whatever reason, the top layer parallax is disappearing and reappearing at a very rapid rate. And so basically what you're seeing is it rapidly transitioning between the parallax layer below and the parallax layer above, which is creating this very absurd vibration effect. Now what I don't understand is as I go further north, the vibrations decrease in intensity. So at the furthest southern point, it is like a fucking magnitude 9 earthquake that's happening. And then as I go further north, it kind of becomes more of a magnitude 2 earthquake. So I don't know why that is. I've played around with these settings a lot, and there's even a demo project. And I've looked through the demo project, and I just cannot figure out how to make this work. What I wanted was that the Parallax utility plugin allowed for crossfading between parallax layers. Well, it's not crossfading. It's not like it's switching from one to the other, but instead it's just fading in a new layer, so that new layer would overlap the old layer, which would create like a crossfade effect. But I can't figure out how to do that. And I think, well, this is how the vibration started happening, is that there is a fade option that I turned on. So if I go to my preset crossfade here and change the fade duration to like 60, that's whatever, 50 is whatever. Then what happens is that it just is constantly going in and out. Yeah, like that, which is actually possibly even worse than the rapid vibration. This is like, I feel like I'm drunk. It's a drunken earthquake is what it is now. But I don't know why it pulses in and out. I feel like all I wanted to do is fade in and stay instead of fade in and out. That fade in and out is annoying. That's not what I want. So I've played around with these settings a lot. I spent, I don't know, probably 2 or 3 hours yesterday like fucking around with this plugin just to get it right, and I cannot figure it out. This is another complaint I have about plugins, is so many plugins are so unclear with their instructions. And it makes me kind of feel like an idiot, because I go to like the forum post on RPG Maker where they announce the plugin, and all these people are like, "Oh yeah, this is working great. I can't wait to use it." And it's like, am I an idiot? How come all these people understand what they're doing, but I have no fucking clue how to use this thing? Anyways, yeah, I don't know. I guess throughout this week I'm gonna continue to try to get this to work properly. Or otherwise, I'm going to look for another plugin that does what I want. Like, the thing is with this Parallax plugin is it does a lot of things that I don't need to use like 90% of them. The only thing I want to use this parallax plugin for is because it can fade in parallax layers in the background. And I want to use that fade in ability to just gently switch between the different parallax layers instead of having this sudden jerkiness in changes. Let me go back to here and turn this off. So instead of having this sudden jerky change between parallax layers, I just wanted to crossfade between it. Is it elegant? No, but I think it gets the job done, and it would be a lot better than this, which is feels like a disaster. Yeah, that's all I want, is just to be able to crossfade. Or ideally, what I looked for is, it would be great if there was a parallax plugin that allowed it to pan the parallax image as you moved, and also zoom the parallax image as you moved. Because in that case, I could start really zoomed in, and as the player moves, it could zoom out the parallax. That would be great too. And I tried searching for that kind of stuff. That was part of the 2 or 3 hours yesterday when I was trying to get this to work. It's just trying to find an alternative to this plugin. But I couldn't find any parallax plugin that allows for pan and zoom of the parallax background. So here's the map in full. There is this black line, which is just to help me find the center. It's going to be, as you could see, if we go back to the parallax test, the staircase here actually masks the black line, so you can't see it anyways. So, and that's the intent, is that I figured the staircase will block this black line. But anyways, so I made this whole map. This took forever to make. This was like probably 5 hours, just having podcasts on in the background while I filled out this map, which is funny because it's a map that's totally going to be used for like 30 seconds as a background. I've considered maybe possibly through maybe some sort of secrets or something, allowing the player to get to this map, but I don't know what they would do here. Like, I don't know, they could explore. I don't know. I don't want to really develop anything super intense. It's just meant for that that single parallax effect on this map. I'm way zoomed out, but it's this map here. That's all I want it for, and it's only for a certain extent, because at a certain point, what I want is, as the player gets higher and higher, you won't even see the ground anymore, and instead it will transition to clouds, so then you'll be above the clouds, and then eventually the clouds will transition to like space. That's the idea. So you have the ground, clouds, space. So yeah, so it would only be there for, I don't know, 30 seconds or something. So it's kind of nuts. I made this whole map just for the 30 seconds, but I don't know. I tried thinking of other ways of creating like a convincing parallax below the player, and I thought about like using Google Maps, like satellite view, and then maybe I could just like take some screenshots. Like I could change the zoom level on Google Maps to kind of create that Z height effect, and then just using like Photoshop filters or something to kind of make it not look like it was just screenshots from Google Maps. But I don't know. I still didn't really like it because like it's totally fine here. I don't mind this parallax background, but there is sort of a inconsistency between the pixel art style and then this processed photo in the background. It just it seems a little. Where's my voice going? Let's take a drink. It's fine. The inconsistency in art style is fine at the top of the lighthouse because it's very brief. It's not an important element of what's going on. It's just flavor, I guess you could say. It's garnishment. However, I'm not happy with that mismatched in art style when I'm trying to create this effect here. Like this whole map is just you moving north. So I want to make sure that the backgrounds are as consistent as possible. When I do the clouds and the space, they might have this slightly mismatched art style, but I think it's easier to forgive with clouds, which brings me back to the lighthouse again as well. It's easier to forgive with clouds, and especially space. Like, I think the space background works pretty well for here. I think the space background actually matches just fine with the rest of the art style. So, yeah, it's just a matter of the first layer, you know, as you're leaving the ground behind and going higher into the sky. So, I don't know. Like I said, here's that map I spent forever building. The other thing is I should mention is, since this map was built with just the intention of being used as a background, and a background that zoomed pretty far out, the amount of detailing work that was put in the map is not super high quality. There might be some like weird tiles going on, some like tiles that might have accidentally been laid on top of each other that just look like they're colliding or whatever. It's not the most beautiful artwork, and that's because it's zoomed out and it's not an explorable level. So that's just to say, like, if I wanted to give the chance for players to explore this area, I might have to clean up some stuff, which I just don't really want to do. I also consider just preventing them from leaving the path, which means they just wouldn't be able to see any of this stuff out here. I don't know. But I'll decide that at some later point. I have to figure out this fucking parallax thing. And let me know in the comments if you have any ideas on how to do this. Or if you understand how to use Dr. Doom's, with an H, Doom with an H, parallax utilities. If you can understand how to make these work, then let me know. Or let me know if you know any plugins that just allow for panning of the parallax and zooming of the parallax. Yep. That about covers the problem here. I don't know. I'll try to figure this out. It's kind of discouraging. I'm not sure what to do. Like I said, I played for a while with this plugin, and I can't figure it out. I looked at the demo project that they include. But the thing is, with their demo project, not only is it not very clear anyways, but it also doesn't do exactly what I'm looking for, because they're using parallax stuff for something entirely different than what I'm doing. They're using parallax to create like visual effects, such as creating like shadows of clouds passing over, and creating other weather effects like rain, and creating like sparkles around the player and stuff like that, which is all neat. But I just want to do something really simple, and that's just simply to crossfade between parallax layers. And I don't know, it's a nightmare to hook this up. So like, you have to put notes on the map itself, what preset you want to use, and then you create the preset here in the plugin utility itself. Like, it comes with these presets by default. I tried creating the crossfade preset myself, because as far as I could tell, none of these presets do what I want. And then now that you've defined the layers for the map and you've defined the presets, now you can use plugin commands to tell it when to activate those presets, sort of. Except that, as you could see, when I loaded it up, the preset was already active. Why that is, I don't know. I don't know. This plugin is so fucking complicated. I don't get it. Yeah, I don't know. I've streamed for nearly 2 hours now. Most of it's been complaining about Warframe. Yeah, I think that's almost going to be it. Let's talk about what's coming up next for the next time stream. I'm, like I said earlier, I'm still waiting on the fish plugin. So I don't know if there's going to be any progress done on the cave level until that's done, but waiting on that. I'm going to try to make the parallax thing work, and I'm going to try to do the quests, try to do more quests here in the town. I may also decorate these corridors. I've gone ahead and created all the corridors for the town, but they're mostly copy and pastes of the east corridor. And that's just because I just wanted to make sure that the width and height were exactly the same. I don't remember exactly what it is, and I could easily check that. But rather than have to type that out every time, it's just easier to copy and paste, 26 by 15. So yeah, the west and north corridor are the exact same as the east corridor. The east corridor is partially right. It is for the forest level, which has these shadow tiles that I absolutely fucking hate. So I'll look into alternatives to that. I may, like here, this is fine. I may not just do shadows under these bits that stick out. I don't know. I'll play around with it. So I may redo this section, but anyways, I may work on at least creating the corridors between each section. Yeah, that's about that. That's what I'll work on, as well as the other stuff I mentioned. So anyways, that's it for this week. Also, just your last friendly reminder that next week may potentially be my last regular stream. I don't know. We'll see what how I feel after working a full week, working mostly full time. I may not have the energy to stream, but anyways, we'll see. Next week will be a normal stream, and we'll see what happens from there. So, as for today, that's going to be it. Thank you for watching the archive and making it this far. Remember to do the like, comment, subscribe thing, and also check out the stuff in the links below. There's my book. There's my music. Oh, hey. Thanks for leaving a comment here at the end. Yeah, thanks. So anyways, so yeah, check out all the stuff in the comments down below, or comments in the description down below, and I'm gonna see you guys next time. So, and Moku Moku, thanks for stopping by to at least leave one comment before I go.